Hello and welcome to the latest video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout, looking ahead to the 23-24 season. My name is Joe and it's team reveal time again, and this time it's the turn of FPL Wire host Zophar to offer a good indicator of how our drafts are evolving during the pre-season period. Also, myself and Zoph teams are frequently similar over the last decade or so we'll see if there's any similarities and any differences. Zoph, how are you?
Doing great, Joe. As everyone can see, has a different background. I'm traveling right now. I'm actually in Calcutta. It's a city on the eastern part of India. And the hotel which I'm staying now is actually the first five-star hotel in all of East Asia.
Wow.
It's the oldest hotel in India.
Oh my lord! The first 5-star. Wow, that is some achievement. So, is it living up to its 5-star billing?
Yes, very much so. Very luxurious stay.
Excellent stuff. So that's good for the hotel there. So before we were talking on air, you were saying you've haven't been thinking about FPL too much at the moment because you're obviously busy with work stuff and the season hasn't started. But you have created a team, so you've been thinking about it a little bit. But pre-season will tell us more. Okay, what I'll do is I'll put your team up and I'll go through the players, but then I'll ask you about some of your basic decisions around structure and the big decisions that you had, and then we'll look at the players in detail. So for the benefit of those listening to the podcast version, we got Pickford in goal, we got Estupinan, Alexander-Arnold and Shaw in a 3-5-2, very similar to a lot of the teams, 3-5-2. There are some differences though. Saka, Martinelli, Mbeumo, Rashford, Matoma in midfield, so double Arsenal midfield. Jesus, so it's a triple up of Arsenal attack. Haaland, obviously your captain, and then you've got the Everton backup goalie, 4 million on the bench, and a whole bunch of 4 millions with Bayer, Bell, and who is this other guy?
I honestly haven't paid attention to that 4.5 structure. It's just whoever came on auto select. We'll really know by the end of preseason. Right. And there's not really point any wasting time on that spot. It was just an auto select 4.5 placeholder.
Yeah. So basically, for everyone watching and listening, there's a 4.5 striker there. We don't know who it's going to be yet. In my team, it's Archer. And in this team, it's a player I've never heard of. So
I haven't either.
But who knows? You could take the plunge, and it could be someone else. So we'll take it from there.
Good one there.
Okay. Now the basic structure. 3-5-2. It's obvious it has to start with 3-5-2, or is it obvious?
I mean, the thing is, there's so many good options in midfield, right? And I found the striker pricing quite strange. You go Haaland, Kane, that's 12.5, then you go straight to 8. Yeah. It's very weird that there's literally nothing between 8 to 12.5, which just makes the thing right. We talk at the start of the season, the price points.
Yeah.
So the whole point of getting that 8 million guy is where I can basically go to any striker bar 2 guys. That's Haaland and Kane.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to keep that flexibility. And just in midfield, there's just so many good options.
Yeah.
And I want to have the options are necessarily moving between them according to fixtures, form, and all that stuff. So again, I tried to cover all the price points. Mm-hmm. I don't have anyone between 7 million, but I am thinking about Foden. There's recent news that has come out about Mahrez possibly leaving Man City. KDB not being fully fit, so then Martinelli's spot could become Foden, in which case then I get that 7-ish slot, possibly upgrade my bench with that 500,000. Looking at Onana also. The thing is, the transfer window, there's so many things happening, right? We don't know. Chelsea might sign another forward.
Yeah.
So all options are open.
Yeah, definitely. And there's lots of players moving between teams. It's I found last season quite relatively easy to navigate because the teams... There were a number of teams that you could tell after a few game weeks they weren't going to improve unless they got more bodies in, or there was something else going on. Your team, Chelsea, for example, they brought in an owner who had this policy with a baseball team in America: buy all the best players in the universe, and then let's hope they work. But as we know, that strategy doesn't work. So now they're correcting that. They're offloading a lot of players. They're starting to become, hopefully, more of a team. So the narrative there will be that hopefully for your team, Chelsea will be better. But for last season, we knew Chelsea would just no go. So that's easy. Avoid them. And then you can focus on some other players as well. And so there's a lot of changes. Yeah, I agree. The 3-5-2 is interesting. I found, do you know what? Your bench I do find interesting though, because you've gone for two 4.0 defenders. They could be anyone because they're very rarely going to play. But what's motivated you into that? Is it because you just want to get as much money into the team as possible, or do you think you might need like a Botman, for example, on your bench?
I do want to get at least one more playing defender, not necessarily Botman, because I just had a look at Newcastle's first six fixtures. There's probably one in there where I'd want to play Botman with confidence. If I do add a 4.5, it'll probably be Pinnock. Okay. Brentford have 4 home games in the first 6, and they're good at home. Pinnock has a bit of goal threat about him as well. But the thing is, now I looked at 6 million midfielders. I couldn't find anybody I liked in that spot where Bumo is right now, where Mitoma is right now. So if I can find that, then I could squeeze at 0.5 out, or maybe Shaw becomes Gabriel, in which case Martinelli becomes Foden. Yeah. That works out really well. But I do want to get another defender purely for peace of mind, because I don't know who either of these guys are, Pierre or Bell, to be honest. I haven't done enough research. I don't know if they're going to be playing in preseason, and they might be not playing by the time the transfer window finishes, right? So they're starting as well. And then I'm worried about price drops, because game week 2, you've had Bayer and Bell, both their fixture called off. So they will not, even though they're 4.0 guys, there is going to be some sort of negative price movement in that direction. So that's in my mind. I do want to get.
Well, I can allay your fears with Bayer because, but I mean, he seems pretty nailed on. His nickname is Beckham Bayer. So if you've got that nickname, you're probably going to start. He seems to be a staple player. Obviously, game week 1, he's got Man City, but looking at him, I think you're pretty safe with him. Before we come on there, and I've mentioned earlier here, our teams are often quite similar each year. We have quite similar styles to play. You have a motto that I've always used: get good players from good teams. Sounds simple, but we very rarely do it. But I try and do that, and so I follow that advice, and that probably leads us to having similar teams. But
Spill the beans, Joe. I had a look at your team reveal earlier. If it has moved along? How similar are you this time around?
Well, I have made a change, and it is coincidentally, you will not be surprised, it's very similar to your team in this change, in that I have eked a bit more money. I've got rid of Botman. I indeed also had the same thing. I had Botman on my bench, first sub. I thought, great, I've got a great first sub. And then I saw, okay, game week 2 against Man City. I don't want him to come on. I might get negative points. And then I looked at all the other fixtures right up until I think it was game week 5 or 6, and I just thought, I don't want to play him. And he just looks like a price drop waiting to happen. So I eked a bit more money out. And so I've got Bayer. I've got Baldock instead of Bell, but it could easily be Bell. Bell's at the Gold Cup at the moment for Jamaica, so I don't know whether he's going to start. We'll find out a bit later. But I've used that money to do another thing that you are thinking of doing, which is where we might be. Your head's been turned by Foden, so I have eked out some money, and I've used that to get Foden into my midfield. So I did have Maddison, I've got Foden, and I've upgraded Mbomo to Bowen from Jarrod
Interesting.
Bowen. Because
that's interesting. I'm not so sure about Bowen. That's probably the one pick I'm least sure about, because this whole thing about Brennan Johnson possibly moving to Brentford. That's what I read. But that's the thing, is they've got 4 home fixtures in the first 6. No Tony. So I want to get a piece of some of their attack, but I've had bad experiences with Mbomo, as we all have in the past. So that's probably the pick I'm least sure about it, but I'm willing to give it a chance, see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. So so we were talking earlier about similarities, and we've definitely got a similarity there. Get the most into the money into the team as possible. We've also got that similarity of looking at Foden, but for me, I've used some money for Bowen to Mbomo, but I might move that back. So there is another similarity there probably. Let's go into the players. You are relying week on week out on the Everton defence. How do you feel?
Not very good, but the it has to be a 4.5 goalkeeper.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind going about that, but I might be tempted by Onana From what I've heard about him, he might be very good for bonus points if he plays with his feet as much as we expect. And of course, we always look for the lowest entry point, right, into any defense. If I'm getting a nailed on entry point at 5.2, then I would rather not spend that extra point 0.5 on Shaw. There are various other good defenders who are available at 5 million. So those are the three options I'm looking at. And the Brighton guys, obviously, as you know, Brighton now have two goalkeepers. We don't know who might be first choice, but I'm sure by the end of preseason, we will have some sort of idea.
Definitely.
The last piece is the one before that. So I don't mind doubling up on their defense for the first 5 or 6.
Okay. Yeah, they've signed, for those that don't know, Brighton have signed for Bruggen. He's 20 years old. He comes from, I think it was Anderlecht. He was in the Europa Conference. He saved 3 penalties, I believe. So he's young, Europe experience, definitely a long-term pick for Brighton. My instinct, without any pre-season, is that he is there for Europe because they are in the Europa League. And he's there for cups, he's there for Europe, he's there for the long term. Steele didn't do anything wrong, and De Zerbi loves him. So it's possible in pre-season for Bruggen is astonishing, and Steele isn't. So as you said, but as it stands at the moment, I think Steele could be under consideration as a goalkeeper.
I think so too.
Yeah. So I personally have Steele in mind instead of Pickford, and that has allowed me to move Estupiñán to Gabriel in my draft, and that is the only changes. That's the only changes, as you would expect for our similar teams. So yes, you've got Estupiñán, the Brighton defence, and he's so attacking, isn't he?
So attacking,
and he could even be on penalties. He has taken them for his country.
That's a bit of a pipe dream, I agree, but just his open play threat is so good, right? And it's the first 3 fixtures that are really that great for Brighton. You hope to open, but he is the most owned defender in the game as well, so it's a bit of insurance in case he does go big.
Yeah,
I do like to pay at least some attention to ownership for guys who are at least at the top end of each bracket.
Yeah, definitely. And like you, Onana coming in at Manchester United would be throw a cat amongst the pigeons for my team as well, because it means I would be able to downgrade Shaw and save myself if he's 5 million. But if Onana comes in at 5.5, then I don't
think so. It wouldn't make sense because De Gea was I think he won the award, right, for the Golden Glove last season. So I don't see any reason that Onana should be more. It's not like De Gea is priced lower because of any rotation threat.
Yeah, and Ramsdale is Arsenal's goalkeeper, 5 million. I mean, you would argue that Arsenal's defence, they were, a better team. I mean, by the league position last year, so you would assume they would be possibly in the same ballpark. But that could be something you could do as well. Alexander-Arnold. I've done another team reveal video with Mark, our writer, and he has gone Alexander-Arnold less. And he doesn't have any Mabomo issues or anything like that. He's just good players, good teams. His team is amazing because he doesn't have Alexander-Arnold or Salah. He can spread that. Is he just non-negotiable for you?
No, it's nowhere near non-negotiable. What it comes down is always this combination. So right now I can go Trent or Bumo, or I can go something like a Son and a Chilwell. Okay. So I'm looking to see what signs I see from Son. I'm open to the idea because again, Liverpool's fixtures don't scream clean sheets to me.
No.
The first 4, 5, 6, maybe that there's away to Wolves, home to West Ham is all right. But again, Villa, they could concede, and away games to Newcastle and Chelsea. So, the fear is obviously the second fixture, the Bournemouth fixture, which could really be a 15, 18 pointer.
Yeah.
So right now he's just there mostly as a placeholder in terms of price points. I can move him to anywhere I want. Yeah. And I think that Bumo is going to be good value. But if I see good things from preseason from Son, it's an easy switch around.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, looking at the fixtures there, so, yeah, as you said, Brentford, Tottenham's opponents first week, and then they have a bit of a mixture, but they have this lovely run, don't they, Tottenham, between 3 and 5, Bournemouth, Burnley, and Sheffield United. And they've also got Luton in game week 8. Meanwhile, looking at Liverpool, it doesn't look good for clean sheets, but I guess Alexander-Arnold's, you're hoping for assists there. He's so well owned, but I can't see a clean sheet really in that Newcastle game away. But possibly, or even Villa. I mean, Villa are pretty good. I think I heard something that they only failed to score at home once.
Correct. But the game is at Anfield, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's at Anfield, yes. But yes. So what was I think they did pretty well at Anfield last time they visited, and
They
that was
did. I do remember that.
and that
I
was
think
quite
Douglas Luiz scored.
yeah, and that was quite late in the season as well. So that was when
Yeah.
Liverpool. I know they're going to be better now with their midfield, but
It's
that
the
was
high
when
line they play, right?
yeah,
That's will have a good build to exploit
yeah.
that. So again, no, so the Wolves game is decent, but they're all there's no, the only thing first 4 or 5, I think probably Bournemouth is one you say is a banker.
Yeah. Okay. Now I've got the fixtures up on the screen at the moment for those watching it, and it shows that Chelsea are top over the first 8. They do have Liverpool to start, but then West Ham, Luton, Forest, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, Burnley. I mean, these look good for attacking and a defensive point of view. So going back to your team, you mentioned about James, could be Chilwell as well. So. I mean, are you actually looking at a sort of a game week 2 move? Because Chelsea are your side, so it'd be nice to have Chelsea in your side for that great run from game week 2 onwards.
It always is, but the thing is, I'm a bit of a pessimist and a reluctant optimist. Let's not say pessimist, let's say reluctant optimist when it comes to
Yeah,
Chelsea. So usually I'm a bit late to invest because I don't want to put my heart and FPL team into it. It feels like to me sometimes it's a bit too much investment. It can be quite heartbreaking.
okay.
Chelsea lose, and you see my defender getting 0 1 points. So if Chelsea do well, I'm usually pretty late to the party. So, but at the same time, I am interested. My eyes are open. I'm keeping a watch. I really haven't seen anything of preseason yet. It's quite early.
No.
So I'm waiting to see certain signs of the preseason. The signing of Sassedo, if you do get him, would make me feel a lot confident. But right now, it feels like our midfield is a bit thin in the defensive department. That's primarily my concern. But and I would be tempted by, like we discussed earlier, moving the Trent to a Chelsea wing back and then Boomer to Son.
Yeah. And also, I mean, in terms of attack, they've Sterling has got a massive price drop, just 7 million, and he does have pedigree in this game. And Nkunku up front, although he probably won't be as the main striker, but could be. I mean, what's your feeling? I mean, are these the players you're watching from an attacking point of view, or any others?
Absolutely. These are the three you did the nail on the head I'm looking at. Mudryk, I think, will take some time to gel in, but the three guys you mentioned are definitely high on my watch list to go to watch preseason very closely. Sterling is very easy to get to
Yeah.
from either of the 2 6.5 guys. All it needs is a short downgrade.
And also,
Like we discussed, the Onana thing happens and I have a 500,000 free or Martinelli to Foden. It's very easy to find that 500,000 for Sterling.
Yeah.
Similarly for Jesus, I can wait, move him on to Nkunku if I see what I like in a couple of games.
yeah,
I like what I see rather.
No, that I mean that is definitely the reason I've got Jesus is partly because it's Jesus, and he did well last season when he was fit and available. But it's also because he can. It's who he isn't. He could be anyone else because, as you said, there's this huge gap between Jesus and Watkins, and then you move up, and then you've got your Kanes and Haalands. You haven't got your Vardys anymore. You haven't got any of those. Traditionally, the Chelsea striker, your Costas, your Maratas, these 9.5, 10 million players. Drogba, I think, was 10.5 traditionally for a long time.
You're right.
Very underpriced.
Torres was also about that much,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I can definitely see that here. So we've spoken about Mabomo. This whole Arsenal triple up. This is a lot of money in Arsenal's attack. Even though they're kindly priced, it's still a lot of your team. You feel happy with that going? I mean, I guess it's Forest first off, so it should be.
So the thing is, again, like they have the 4 home games in the first 6, and this is forming the crux of my team because I know by around 6 or 7 is when I'll probably start looking at the wildcard button. So Arsenal for every home game, I think last season, or at least almost every home game, they registered over 3 xg, and I think they possibly had the best transfer window with the signing of Declan Rice, Havertz. These are all very forward-thinking players who can gel into the team very well. So I'm expecting big things now. Saka and Jesus I'm fairly certain on. Martinelli, I'm monitoring, waiting preseason. I do think I'm missing out the value in Gabriel a little bit. 5 million for Gabriel feels a bit underpriced to me. I was expecting 6, even 5.5. So I do feel I'm missing out a little bit there. So I'm watching in terms of preseason. I will definitely have 2, but 3 is what I've gotten currently. And I don't mind going into it because after the Forest game, they can become anyone.
Yeah. I mean,
They're all accessible.
Looking at the fixtures after Forest, you can happily keep them as well. They've got Crystal Palace away, then Fulham at home, Manchester United at home, Everton away, Tottenham at home, Bournemouth away. Then it stiffens up with game week 8 against Man City, but at home. So there's a lot of potential in all of those. It's also we mentioned Gabriel. He's, from my limited knowledge of Arsenal's defence, left-footed, tends to play on the left. So Timber is usually on the right, either as a centre back or as a right back. So Timber has joined Arsenal, and that could disrupt the Arsenal defence, the back line, somewhat. You would imagine he would get minutes and play. But it probably would be possibly for Saliba or White rather than Gabriel. But I guess that's something we need to look at pre-season. Because we definitely, you don't want to be spending 5 million on an Arsenal defender and see them on the bench.
Absolutely spot on. I like Gabriel obviously because he has a bit of that goal threat also, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
willing to experiment over there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll go back to your team now. So I've just had the fixtures up on the screen just to confirm those Arsenal fixtures there. So yeah, now you got Matoma for Brighton. I guess like all of us, we're all waiting. I mean, me as a Brighton fan, but now luckily everyone else is just waiting to see what Brighton are going to do with all of their plethora of midfielders and attacking wingers. And so yeah, Matoma's there, but I guess you're possibly open to it being anyone.
Absolutely, because I don't know why Enciso is possibly going to play after McAllister leave. I know you guys bought the guy from Dortmund, Dahoud.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably play in midfield. He won't be a threat to Mitoma's spot. So ultimately it's Enciso and you guys have Buonanotte.
Yeah.
You guys have options, but I do feel Mitoma is something unique out of all of those guys. What he brings to the team in terms of ball progression, the out ball is something he brings. So I think he will start a few games initially. Once Europe kicks in, you might see some rotation. But again, these guys are also a 2+, 3+ XG team under De Zerbi for the last 10 games. And it's only when the fatigue kicked in from the fixture overload is when the numbers dropped off, and Mitoma's form also dropped off.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he can pick that up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he is, I said it in Mark's video as well for his team reveal, Matoma is literally an academic in dribbling. What his degree was in a Japanese university. He had GoPro on his head and he was looking at the way people react to various dribbling. So if anyone can change their style to make sure that he keeps winning and moving past players, it's going to be him. But yeah, time will tell. There's a lot of options there, and Ciso, Pedro, and more. And that's just at Brighton because you've got Mabomo there, Sade, Visser. These could be other options in that general midfield or forward attacking bracket. And then there's also the Palace players as well. You've got Eze. Are you tempted by any of them? Eze, Elise, etc.?
Traditionally, I try to avoid Hodgson attackers because generally his teams are like defense first teams. So wait and watch there.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Crystal Palace. I mean, you're probably wise for the fixtures as well. Sheffield United's away start, that's great. And then they got Arsenal, Brentford, Wolves and Aston Villa, and Fulham a bit better. But then Manchester United, but then Nottingham Forest. So real mishmash of fixtures there. Now, one of the points of difference with my team and your team is Jared Bowen. Now, my head's just been turned. As soon as I see a player score 3 goals and 2 assists against Boreham Wood and Perth Glory, I'm all over that. So Jared Bowen is in my team. Might not be by game week 1. Are you tempted by that, or is he or that type of player at West Ham? Because West Ham have some good players, and they are, a European Cup winner of some kind last season. So, are you tempted by West Ham, or are their fixtures a bit too middling for you?
I haven't followed any preseason. That's probably a good thing. Otherwise, I would have swung Bowen in my squad probably either. So, but in general, from what I felt about Bowen, there was even during his really good season the year before last, his numbers are very biased towards home.
Yeah,
I remember almost all his goals came in home games. And away games, he played a very different role. So I'm waiting to see whether he can get that sort of output back. He sort of showed glimpses of it during the last 5-6 games of last season. But in general, so I prefer to be a more wait and watch because as much as possible, I try to get players from the, where we say top 6, top 8.
Yeah.
It's obviously not the case with your Brentford and Brighton right now, but they're very much in that conversation now. They're very much top half of the table teams. And West Ham, I'm still not as convinced that they're back. Then again, I'm still not convinced on Moyes being an attacking manager.
No, I mean,
That always gnaws at me.
I mean, looking at the fixtures, you might have convinced me to take him out, but he's got Bournemouth to start, but it's away. But then Chelsea at home, and then Brighton away, and then Luton away, and then a couple of tough fixtures, City and Liverpool.
So they have the three. They're the reverse of Arsenal, I think, because they have the 3 away games in the first 4.
Yeah, and but then it gets so game week 7, Sheffield United at home. That could be Jared Bowen time. So logically, I should be waiting until then. But I don't know. My head gets turned. We will see. Okay, we'll go back to your team. So we got Matoma, Rashford. So we've tripled up on the Arsenal attack. Are you tempted to double up on the Manchester United attack, or is it just it's Rashford or bust? Rashford is the only one that really appeals at the moment for you.
If I do get another United player, it would be alongside Rashford, not instead of.
Okay.
I have looked at Bruno, but I'm a bit unclear where Mount will play because Mount can't really play in centre midfield. No. Mount needs to play closer to the goal. So the only position I can see him playing is either on the right wing or in the number 10 role, this is where we saw Bruno flourish, either number 10 or on the right wing. Yeah. We saw when he played the deeper role, it was mostly speculative shots from outside. Yeah. Through balls being created and all that stuff. So I'm willing to wait and see what that case is. And in general, United last season, they were a bit of a defense first team.
Yeah.
They created some chances, but their finishing let them down. The creative numbers weren't that bad, but I feel Arsenal's attack offers a bit more than United's does.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to, I think it was on Planet FPL's podcast, and they were saying that Manchester United only scored 58 goals last season. And I was quite surprised by that, considering Rashford did so well. 200 points or so, 200 plus points. So I guess once again you're right there because you don't want to invest in a team too heavily where there are limited goals over a long period of time, especially if it's a player like this you want to keep for a while, like Rashford. I think with Mount, I think the consensus seems to be that the manager might play sort of 2 advanced number 8s in Fernandes and Mount, with Mount more on the right, and I think that was the system he deployed in Holland in the Dutch league. So I that's possible. In which case, Mount at 7 million, if he's basically offering the same sort of threat in open play as Fernandes, wow, my head. I forget Jared Bowen. I'm on Mount then.
Yep. And it's easy to go down.
Yeah, definitely there. So up front, Haaland. I'm not really going to dwell on Haaland too much, and it's understand why you're captaining him. And Jesus, we've spoken about there. So these are the players that are in your team. We've mentioned some of the players that aren't in your team. Who else isn't in your team that could be in your team, or you've really thought about and you really wish they were there?
I mean, let's just go position by position. Goalkeepers, we mentioned the 3 guys. Yeah. In defense, the other consideration obviously are Arsenal defenders and Chelsea defenders. In general, so I don't really believe in the concept of rotation amongst defenders or goalkeepers. It doesn't really work for me because it's very hard to predict. And the possibility of, I think I always like to play FPL to the path of least regret. Yeah. I play it for fun, so I don't really want to have the regret. I want to make as few decisions as possible every weekend. Because I don't want to feel bad about it. It's a game I play for fun. So my traditional strategy has always been from the year I started is get the defenders from the top 4, top 5 sides and just play them every game. Yeah. Just get your attacking guys so they can get points at both ends. So I'm only considering defenders from that top bracket of teams. I know that there's probably going to be jokes in the comments about Chelsea being a bottom half team, but it is what it is.
I mean, if James is fit, it could be on penalties. We know him and Chilwell are very good assets. Particularly Chilwell I've really enjoyed owning Chilwell at the times I have. I think he's
exactly
great.
Yeah, his PPG has actually been more, but I'm waiting to see now. Traditionally, the Chelsea fullbacks have they had 2 different roles. Earlier, you had James playing more of a creative, or Chilwell playing an inside forward. So I'm waiting to see how Pochettino possibly sets them up because I don't think he'll be playing with a back 3. I'm pretty confident with the personnel we have, it will be a 4, but the fullbacks do get forward still in his systems.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got that for the defense and midfield as well. I mean Son
is who I mentioned. I think Son is probably the big one. Bruno is again someone who's there in consideration. But then there's not really much else, right? Madison, of course. But then I would much rather go for Son over there. It depends if Kane stays. Foden is really the big one because ultimately it's Man City, and even if you can get a nailed Man City player for let's say 4 or 5 weeks,
Yeah.
the potential is huge. And Foden is probably the one guy who has that explosive potential. Besides Haaland, we've seen very close, where he plays very close to Haaland when he does start. So that's one that's really tempting me.
Yeah,
There.
one thing I was looking at, because originally I did have Madison in my first job, but then I just thought, well, I didn't really like that opening fixture, and I preferred some other players' opening fixtures. But I do think that it's good to. So that one of my rationales of Foden is eyeing him up to become Madison when more rotation kicks in for Man City. Also, I mean, it is unclear with Foden at the moment, so we're waiting for pre-season. But I was looking at that, and I do think that Spurs are going to improve. I always think with a team, going back to your team, Chelsea, and I think put Spurs in that same bracket. When a team does underperform quite substantially in a season, the only way has to be up. I cannot fathom a world where Chelsea and Spurs will be worse than last season. And so you definitely want a piece of those attack.
Let's hope Spurs are not Chelsea.
Yeah, I correct that. As someone who's played FPL for a while and is neutral, I can fathom a world where Spurs are worse. They will somehow engineer that situation. So we've got that there. So and also in attack as well, Haaland, whatever. But Jesus, probably like me, you've got your eye on others. Who
And
else?
Kunku.
Yeah,
And Kunku's the
is
big one I have my own. I don't see myself really going for Watkins or Mitrovic early on, but Nkunku is the one who's really tempting me a lot because he's used to play as a winger, but now pretty much he's been playing a striker or a support striker.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's definitely got the very explosive potential, and his price is so low, 7.5. I mean, you and I have been playing this game for a long time. When a 7.5 striker scores for 2 games in a row, that's it. You will see 0.2 price rises every week.
No doubt.
And within, I mean, sometimes you just blink, and it's like, oh, I think I might get.
Especially the first few weeks when everyone's active, the first 6-7 weeks is when the real value is made.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at that play, you think, oh, I'll get them in, and then you dally a couple of game weeks, and there's suddenly 0.5 more. So he's a player to get on there. Just before we go, it'd be good to just find out a bit about yourself. For those that don't know, sure lots of fans of FPL Wire will be watching this anyway. But tell us a bit about FPL Wire, because you've got a new recruit this season in the team as well. So tell us a bit about FPL Wire.
Well, anyone who's familiar with the phrase "get to the chopper" will know about Russ and his helicopter view. We are very glad to have him as part of our team. And also, we're all part. FPLY is part of the Scout network. Russ is a pro pundit, so it's very much keeping it within our network. And we're also trying to do more short form content. You can check it out on our channel. We've done some specials on Soboslai. I hope I got that right. And Kunku. We've already had a look at wildcard windows and stuff like that. So we're planning to do more short form content alongside our longer content as well this season.
Yeah, I was listening to the interview on FPL Wire with Dan Ashby, who I interviewed as well about specifically about Luton, but he was talking to yourselves more about the promoted sides, and we also have some videos on Fantasy Football Scout as well about that as well. So there's a lot of content around the promoted side. So I'm hopeful. The meme of the Spider-Man meme with Norman Osborn saying I'm something of a whatever expert. I'm hoping that everyone is going to be Sheffield United, Burnley experts and Luton experts.
But it's so strange, and Mark mentioned this on Black Box, the fact that Botman is the same price as a Luton defender. It's absolutely absurd, Joe.
Yeah, it is. And I think, when we were talking about Botman earlier, I think that's what turned my head to Botman. That's why I originally had him in my team. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, I guess he probably is worth a Luton defender in the opening fixtures. I don't really want to play him. But yeah, long term, that is ludicrous because he's going to be playing in the Champions League. And Luton, they've just come from the Championship. So
they don't have a stadium to be ready to play in the Premier League.
No, I mean, that's the... And as Dan... I think Dan might have said, their ground's not ready. But at the moment, the away fans, they're going through someone's kitchen, basically, to get onto the pitch. And I don't know where the team bus are parking in someone's garage or something. But yeah, it's basically down someone's road. So there isn't much going on there as well. But yourself, so you've been playing FPL for quite some time as well. Now I've got this right. Is it 6 top 5k finishes?
I know the 7 top 10k, but I think you might be right.
Yeah.
It might be 6 top 5k as well.
Yeah. So yeah, both, whichever one you want to use. They're both good as well. So you've been playing for a number of years, a bit like me, about, I don't know, 13, 14 years or so?
Yeah, 2009 was my first season.
Yeah. I think that was mine as well. Weird. It's weird because often we're not seen in the same place. But we are both together. So we are both completely separate people. We are not exactly the same. And we often do get very, very similar. It's usually just a captaincy decision or something like that will change our teams as well. How do you feel about going into this season? I mean, I know you haven't really thought about it as much because busy with other stuff. But I personally am quite looking forward. It seems very different. All the teams seem different, and
It is good. And I think last season, I don't know, it felt very draining.
yeah,
By the end of it, I wasn't really enjoying it as much as the last 2-3 months. And I don't know whether it was me to do as much being a Chelsea fan, right? When Chelsea are not doing well, you naturally don't look forward to the weekend and football as much. Because for me, it's always football and Chelsea first, then FPL.
yeah,
So that sort of definitely had an impact for me. It might have been the opposite for you with Brighton flying high. But in general, I do think I was hoping for no postponements, but we already had that with Gameweek 2.
yeah.
But they're not teams that, they're not sudden postponements, and these are not fixtures that are going to be scheduled anytime soon. So it's not that bad. But in general, I look forward to picking good players, like from good teams, as you mentioned earlier, with fixtures, rather than just purely buying players or just wondering whether I should be switching to Mitoma, to McAllister, or March,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, I found last season okay, probably because I found the previous COVID impacted seasons so draining that anything would seem better. And I think those ones I found particularly frustrating because no matter what you did and how much time you spent looking at data, you can't legislate for 7 out of your 15 players not playing the next weekend without any warning, and that was tough to do. So at least last year we had some warning that teams would be blanking, but yeah, I do know what I mean. I think with the World Cup as well, that was another challenge, and some teams and some FPL managers came out of that well, guessing who was going to be good in January and who wasn't. But I think overall, yes. Fingers crossed, this is going to be a normal season, hopefully. And so some of the new managers, those who haven't been playing for years like us, probably haven't experienced this. They'll probably wonder why, but this is, why have you only got a few double game weeks? Why haven't you just got this massive break? Why are all your players playing and not just suddenly ill? So I think that might come as a shock to them. Thanks so much for joining me and so much sharing your thoughts on FPL and your team as well. I'm sure this draft will change as pre-season goes. Just wanted to remind everyone about the members area at Fantasy Football Scout. The season ticker that we showed, that's from there. Across a lot of our other videos and podcasts, we're also looking at some of the information in the articles, in the members areas as well. You've got the comparison tools, and obviously the tables that you can create. And I've created my own, the goals imminent table, which has become a film, a video, a song. Well, no, just a video and a podcast, but in my head it's still a song or a film. And so you can do all of those things there. Also, do remember to press that subscribe button if you're not subscribing already, and do press like so that we know that you like us. And if you don't like us, just press it anyway so we can pretend you like us. Meanwhile, Zoe, thanks so much for joining me. Good luck.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the game week 1. Good luck with the rest of the season. Even though Chelsea pilfered all of our players at Brighton, I do genuinely wish Chelsea better, because it's never good when in FPL when we're denied a good source of FPL points. Thanks so much for joining us. See you soon.
Yes.